Well, this here is this Serenity, a Firefly transport vessel with Captain Malcolm Reynolds. Joining Malcolm on the Serenity is his old soldier friend from the war, Zoe. They've managed to hire on a mechanic, Kaylee, and while visiting Persephone, they took on a couple of strange passengers, Simon Tam and River Tam. In the cargo hold, the Serenity is equipped with plenty of fuel and a couple of spare parts, and it is equipped with a Radeon Accelerator Mark I drive core. This is a standard drive core for the Firefly transport vessel. Although Malcolm has around $3,000, his crew needs work, and it's time to start talking to some various contacts and putting out his feelers to see if there's some jobs that need doing. Well, welcome everybody, this is Robert from Black Belt Gaming. I've managed to pick up Firefly, the board game, and I'm attempting to take a stab at the solo play. This will be my first time playing Firefly, the board game. And following the rules straight out of the book, I'm going to attempt this solo mission here, Awful Lonely in the Big Black. I followed the standard setup rules, but when you're playing solo, you're allowed to not only take your leader, but gather up around 4 crew as long as their value doesn't exceed $1,000. You also use the 20 disgruntled tokens, these little tokens here, as a timer. So anytime we take a fly action, we need to toss one of those tokens. And what is our goal? We're going to go with goal 1, which is called the good. It's making connections. We need to try to complete jobs for the 5 different contacts, maintain a good relationship with them, and like I said, complete all 5 jobs for all 5 connections before time runs out. So let's see what Malcolm and his crew can do. With the Serenity still on Persephone, and while Simon and Tam are getting fixed in their quarters, Malcolm decides to head out and have a talk with Badger, his local contact. Weaving his way through the back streets of Persephone, Malcolm eventually winds up at Badger's headquarters, has a sit down with him, eats a few finger sandwiches and sips on some tea, and gets some leads on some various jobs around the system. Alright, you're allowed to look through the discard piles in this game ahead of time, so you'll kind of have an idea of where you want to go and what you want to try to do. The discard piles start with 3 cards on them. You also begin the game with 3 cards for potential jobs, and these come from different contacts. One of them does actually happen to be Badger here. But I'm taking a deal action, which means I'm speaking to Badger face to face right there where he is. So I get to take the 3 cards from his discard pile and look them over. And then if there's any that I really think that I'm not interested in, I'll put them to the side, and then I can replace those with some fresh cards. And then I can finally choose to take 1 or 2 of these things. I'm only going to need 1 to start completing my goal here. I need to finish a job for Badger and you know, be solid with him. So why don't we look for something that's just not going to be so difficult. Keep your noses clean. This is really just about delivering some cargo, it looks like. But takes my breath away. This one is an illegal job. And I know this is probably going to be a lot harder, but this is my first game. I'm interested to try something like this out. So we're going to consider this one, this illegal job. So why don't I go ahead and accept that. I'll put these others in the discard pile. That gives me 4 inactive jobs in my hand, so I have to discard something. Since I have 2 badger jobs in my hand, I'm going to toss the other one back into the discard pile. So here we have our hand of 3 potential jobs. We haven't started work on any of them yet, but we're going to get to that next. Well, Malcolm heads back to the Serenity and speaks with Kaylee. He said he's got a lead on a job, but they're going to need a 4-wheel drive mule. And he decides to give her some cash and send her off into town to see if she can track one down. While in town, she does come across a couple of mercenaries for hire, and then eventually sees what she needs. A 4-wheel drive mule that's going to run her somewhere around $1,000. Not really having an interest in bringing on another gun, a hired gun on the ship, she continues to look around, sees another mechanic, and they strike up a conversation, and then she comes across something rather interesting here, some fake credentials. This might come in handy. Taking the cash that Mal gave her to spend, she ends up spending $2,000 and picks up the transport and the fake ID. Well, what we just did there was considered a buy action, and when you're at a supply planet, you can take a look at the discard pile of 3 cards, see if there's any you're serious about, and we were not very serious about the hired gun, so we put those to the side and drew a couple more, and decided in the end to purchase 2 things. So that's a legal move there, and we'll stay with it. Well, Kaylee makes her way back to the Serenity with the equipment that she purchased. Mal is quite pleased that she managed to pick up the mule, but he's a bit irritated that she blew $1,000 on a fake ID. Well, in order to make a little bit of cash back, Mal decides to go out to a local bar and get himself involved in a few games of poker, and manages to make back with a work action $200. Well, it's time to buckle up, everybody, Malcolm announces. We're shipping out. We're headed to Hera. There's some shiny new Atmo processors worth a fortune that just arrived there, and Badger wants us to acquire them for him. Alright, well now we're about to take it's actually our 4th action for this turn, and in a solo game that is allowed. I think in the regular game you're only allowed to take 2 actions. So this 4th action is going to be the fly action. We're going to remove one of these disgruntled tokens and put it back in the box. And we're going to attempt a full burn. That means that we can move here up to 5 spaces on the board, but we need to burn a fuel token. Well, the first thing we'll do is move right here. We draw an alliance space card. We're in the blue area of the alliance space, and we keep flying. We'll draw a card for each space that we move, since we're attempting a full burn. If we were just moseying along, which is only moving 1 space, we wouldn't have to spend a fuel token, and we wouldn't need to draw any cards for some sort of encounter. But since we're moving fast and covering a lot of distance, some interesting things may happen along the way. Well, as soon as the Serenity leaves Lux, they pick up a distress signal. Well, instead of leaving these good folks stranded out in space without any fuel and flying away, Mal decides to pilot the Serenity over, dock with the distressed ship, and share some fuel with them, which those folks kindly pay him $200. So we'll take $200. We lose a fuel token here to help out the other ship, but it required us to come to a full stop. So we're going to have to take another fly action to keep moving along. Alright, spending another token here, and putting away another fuel token will do another full burn. Just as they're nearing Osiris, Kaylee notifies Mal from the engine room. We've got some problems down here. We best not bust the coil. So we're going to make a mechanic check here, or we can spend 2 parts and just keep going. But let's see if Kaylee can work her magic on the engine. We're going to need an 8 or better. Alright, so we've got Kaylee here. She's got these 3, I think they're mechanic icons there. She's allowed to make a roll, and she's even allowed to re-roll a failed test in this kind of situation. She's that good. So we'll go ahead and pull out the second D6 and just take the better of those 2 results. Mal can't help here. The equipment can't help. Zoe's no good in this situation. Simon can help out a little bit. He's got 2. That's going to give us 5. And then we sort of have a wild card here with River. You know, she's extremely bright, but rather unpredictable. So we need to roll a die and see what she has to offer in this situation. So let's take our D6, and this is the money in Mal's personal account. But let's give it a roll and see what we get for River. We have rolled a 5. A 5 for River is negotiation. However, she's with Simon, and Simon allows a +2. So if we move up to the 6 or above, you get 3 icons in any chosen skill. Well, we'll take mechanic. So that's going to total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we don't even need to roll the dice. We have avoided the breakdown. Well, despite having avoided the engine trouble there, Mal decides to pilot the Serenity into Osiris and do a little business. The first thing he wants is to have Kaylee head into town and pick up some extra fuel for the ship. Well, on her way to pick up some fuel, Kaylee decides to sell some equipment that she's managed to tinker with and get working again, and she's selling the parts in the local market and makes $200 with a work action. Spending a total of $600, the Serenity will pick up 6 fuel tokens. While shopping around at the Osiris Shipworks, Kaylee comes across a couple of or a few possible ship upgrades, but the one that most interests her is an upgraded core for the ship's drive. She continues to look around, but manages to find something else that looks really interesting. This is a security interface pad, basically a hacking rig worth $1,000. She thinks if she could have this, they might be able to avoid a lot of problems down the road. Spending the last bit of Mal's cash, Kaylee picks up the hacking rig. "We're burning daylight, people," says Malcolm. "There's some crime that needs to be done. Let's get going." Mal does another full burn and starts to head towards the edge of Alliance space. We've made it to Hera, people. Let's grab ourselves those Atmo processors. Alright, well, what we're going to do here is a work action. And it's a crime job. And it requires us to complete 3 misbehaving cards. To even start this job, you need the keyword transport. And thanks to Kaylee shopping around, we've equipped Zoe here with the mule, so we're good to go there. We're going to commit all the crew to this job so we can try to make use of everyone's talents since we don't know what's going to come up. And let's see if we can get ourselves these processors. Alright, this is our active job now. We can have up to 3 active jobs at once. It's time to get these processors, and it's time to draw a misbehave card. Alliance Patrol. We're going to have a couple of options here. Alright. Well, Mal and his crew are kind of casing the joint, looking to see if they can snatch up these Atmo processors. They're rather big, and they're going to need their mule to carry these things back to the ship, especially if they get in a hurry. The first challenge they need to deal with is a patrol of Alliance soldiers. As they're nearing the area, the soldiers stop them and request identification. Fortunately, Simon is able to produce bona fide credentials, a fake ID. This fake ID will automatically allow us to proceed, so no problems here. The Alliance Patrol waves us on through, and we kind of blend into the crowd of other settlers and workers attempting to colonize this planet. One down, two more to go. Here comes misbehave card number 2. The local law. Well, let's see. We can either try to negotiate or shoot our way through here. Well, the crew begins to load the Atmo processors into the mule, and it catches the eye of one of the officers. We've got some trouble headed our way. Let's draw our guns and see if we can get out of this mess alive. Mal's going to be bringing in 2 fighting. Zoe another 2, and she can re-roll fighting tests, so that's going to help us a lot. River is the wild card. Let's see if she can bring in any help, because no one else is bringing in anything. We've got to roll a d6. This is just for River Tam to see what kind of help she can offer. We've got a 5. And thanks to her brother, +2, he's with us. That's going to go up to 3 of any chosen skill. So River turns into quite the gunman. And that's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And of course we can roll a minimum of a 1 on the die roll. Let's see what we would have gotten. The shootout begins. Actually, we can roll 2 dice thanks to Zoe. And we'll take the better of the 2 results. So no problem. The shootout starts, and with a single quick shot that grazes the law officer right across the brow, knocking him out immediately, River Tam takes him down. Mal and Zoe just stare at each other in disbelief, not knowing that River was ever capable of such a feat. So 2 misbehaving cards down, we've got 1 more to go. Misbehave card number 3. Just before the officer passes out, he manages to radio in a call, and it sets off an alarm. There we go, hacking rig, proceed. Just as that alarm starts to sound, Kaylee pulls out the hacking rig and quickly silences the alarm before any other patrols are alerted. The crew loads the processors onto the mule and makes a quick escape back to the Serenity. The job is completed. misbehave to get paid. $3,500, and because we have a mechanic, Kaylee, with us, we get an extra spare part. Mal managed to establish long-distance contact with Badger, telling him that the Atmo processors have been acquired. However, he's a little irritated that Badger didn't give him a heads up that there were so many Alliance patrols around the area. He says not only is that going to run you the $3,500 promised, make it an even $4,000, and you can have these puppies. Badger agrees. The job is completed, and now we are solid with Badger. Giving the crew their cut, that will allow Mal to make a total of $3,200 off this job. After meeting up at the rendezvous point out in the middle of nowhere, the Atmo processors are delivered. However, the crew, knowing that those good folks on the planet could have used some nice clean air, feel a little bit down about completing this kind of work. Hopefully we can move on to something a little less dangerous. So as an immoral job with a very moral crew, we need to hand out some disgruntled tokens. Actually, one for everybody.